Wow, good to meet you out there today, and welcome to this episode from the School of Articulation and Behavioral Alignment Resources, aka SABA Resources. My name is James Komolafe, and I am a certified behavioral health coach. And on this episode from the SABA Resources, we will be talking weekly on the subject of depression. So welcome to SABA Weekly on depression. You might wonder why we are talking about depression. It's a common episode in our days. The adolescents, the youth, the young adult, the aged are all in the saddle. These are days you hear cases of one suicide or the other there. The journey to suicide is never a one-day affair or 100 meters dash. It begins from somewhere. And you see, that simple thought of yours, that painful experience of yours that you bottle inside can lead to somewhere you never experience or imagine. So that is why suicide does not just happen. It begins with thoughts and incidences of depression. Are you sad? Have you come to understand the fact that the journey between sadness and depression is just 2 weeks of unsustainable episode? When you go through a series of sadness and you cannot help it for 2 weeks, it could lead to depressive mode. So in the School of Articulation and Behavioral Alignment Resources, courtesy of the Save Africans from Sudden Collapse Initiative, we are on this medium every week to let you see and know how to trace depression, how to walk away from whichever of its cycle you find yourself per time. So depression is a bad journey indeed. Suicide is never an option. Why are we doing this? We want to arrest the incidences of personal violation, where people just live anyhow, talk anyhow, sleep anyhow, eat anyhow, go anywhere anyhow per time. And that reckless abandonment are major causes of depression. We want to arrest the incidences of sudden collapses, hypertension, kidney disease that happen as a result of carelessness across board. So very vital. We want to use this medium to empower individuals, the critical stakeholders, and the leaders with knowledge so fundamental to arresting the dastard trend of depression, hypertension, and sudden disaster that is so prevalent in our days. We want to show people, the critical stakeholders there, how to play the personal energy game as against fighting the energy war. Because you know what? Nobody fights energy war and win. No? So, the earlier the better to play to the rules of the game so that we can live well and live long per time. Welcome to Full Expression Model, courtesy of SABA Resources. The other point I like to also point out today is the issue of silence across board, cascading from the leadership to the led, from families to schools, institutions, religious places. So what is the issue about silence? Do you know that Some individuals suffer in silence. Some are struggling in silence. Some are depressed already in silence. Some are bound, used up, and some are even deprived in silence in homes, offices, schools. Some are denied in silence. Some are fatigued in silence. And each of these factors is a gateway to depression. When you begin to accumulate and bottle up some of these incidences, it's a sure gateway to depression. So where are you silent? Where are you not being able to voice out what you are passing through and going through as an individual? When you don't have expression and you cannot tell it as it is, of course, it begins to accumulate deep down in your inside and constitute some certain weight on your mind. And that is what is called depression. So per time, you are either in depression or finding expression. Make up your mind today, and as you follow us through this trend, to learn more about depression and walk out consciously out of that valley of depression. So in Saba Resources, we have a behavioral health package for families, institutions, establishments, and we've been hitting the ground running, scooping out the pillets of depression in the individuals, in the corporate place, and across institutions. You might wonder, what is pillet having to do with depression? Yes, pillets are associated with bullets and guns. And you see, when depression shoots its bullet into one's mind, it begins to spill inside and take over a wide area network within the mind, pollutes the mind, weakens the mind. That's why we call it pillet. So it's better when you are in any of the stages of depression to be aware, conscious, and to know what to do to make hay while the sun shines before it begins to deposit the negative debris into your mind. So, we are in critical platforms, we are in churches, homes, we're in the hospitals, we are even in schools, among children and students, and we've trained several, especially in the area of personal energy management, because you see, when you are not in charge of your own personal protocol, then something else will be in charge. So we'll train you and certify you to be in charge from the inside to the outside. You know what? In full expression dynamics, depression fights growth and multiplication in 7 ways. Number 1, depression fights meaning. This is where an individual value statement is dragged in the mud by depression. Depression also fights manifest abilities. Your abilities become caged just because you are going through the trend of depression. Depression also fights the marshalling power for great decision. You can't be in depression cycle from level 1 to 10, whichever, and yet make great decisions. It has a way of altering your facts and your figures. Depression fights mastery of your virtues. Why? Because as long as you are going through its stages, it is contamination of some sort within. Depression fights modeling. You are not able to model your proficiency the way it should be. And so what do you notice? You drag. Things go the bad way instead of the good. Depression fights mentoring capacities. You see, it takes a man being on the mountain to help the one in the valley. So if you are in the valley of depression, then I wonder how well you will be able to help people who are within the same valley or possibly on the mountain. Last but not the least, depression fights your capacity for multiplication. So growth is hampered, multiplication is hampered. Where a man loses his meaning, manifest ability, capacity to marshal out his powers for great decision, the mastery and the modeling, mentoring, competencies, you will never have a multiplier effect. So please watch that thought, that imagination, that sadness going on in your inside. We need to support our critical leadership, the workforce, and the people around us with this competence. Do you know that there is just a little gap between sadness and depression, and the two of them are linked? Do you also know that reality at times could be so complex in the face of one's ability, given the activity that you engage in? Do you know that depression is an emotional disease that is seldomly seen on the face? Do you know that many of our youths today are jumping and hopping between the sad moments and depression, and of course in silence? Do you know that depression begins from just an overdue and ends badly at an overthrow? And all this in 10 stages? Surprisingly, 9 out of the 10 stages of depression cycle happen within the mind. Not too obvious on the surface. So that is why it could be so easy to slip from depression to suicide. You often wonder why just common things like failing exam, or delay in salary, or just a little tight corner there are responsible for suicidal beats and tendencies in our days. I want you to know that there are some certain cases that are mental health issues, but not many of those cases. Mental health issues or family background or some psychotic problems there. Most of the depressions we have today are actually caused by environmental factors, bad economy, and so many issues that are external, causing people to be dampened on the inside. Although there are few cases that have mental health history in families and all of that. But how do you take over and do the needful? Remember, prevention is always better than cure. Plan, strategize. Follow us on this trail and trace every bit of depression within you today. I say it in closing today, depression is a bad journey. Suicide is never an option. Thank you for listening and see you next time. Bye.